I never thought that the scent of her new perfume would become the first signal of a catastrophe that would destroy everything I had built over 5 years. Winter in Sacramento this year turned out to be particularly cold. My landscaping business was thriving. Orders from wealthy clients didn't stop even in the low season. People wanted to prepare their estates for spring, and I was happy to give them that. My landscape design company brought in stable income that allowed Lora and me to live in a spacious house in a prestigious neighborhood. The house itself was my pride, a modern 2-story building with panoramic windows overlooking the garden that I had designed myself. Every tree, every bush, every stone path was chosen and placed with careful consideration. This was more than just a home, it was a testament to my craft, my ability to create beauty from nothing. The California oaks I had planted 3 years ago were already providing shade over the patio, and the Japanese maples near the entrance changed their colors with the seasons, creating a living painting. Lora worked as a boutique manager at an elite store downtown. The boutique catered to wealthy clients who didn't look at price tags, women who came for exclusive pieces from European designers, limited collections, custom orders. Lora always came home with stories about picky clients, new collections and fashion trends. I wasn't particularly interested in fashion, but I loved listening to her excited voice. At least that's what I thought back then. She would describe how Mrs. Henderson spent 3 hours choosing between 2 identical-looking black dresses, how young tech wives competed to see who could buy the most expensive handbag, how an actress from Los Angeles ordered an entire wardrobe for an upcoming awards season. Lora spoke about her work with passion, with fire in her eyes, and I thought she loved what she did. We met 6 years ago at a charity auction. I had just recovered from an unsuccessful first marriage that ended in a quiet divorce without drama or children. My ex-wife and I simply grew apart. She wanted to travel the world while I wanted to build a business. We parted as friends, dividing our minimal shared assets amicably. That experience taught me to be more careful, more selective about who I let into my life. Lora seemed different, bright, ambitious, with that special charm that made people turn to look at her. She wore confidence like others wore jewelry, naturally, without affectation. Her laugh was infectious, her energy boundless. When she walked into a room, she didn't demand attention. She simply received it as if it were her natural right. After a year, we started living together, although we never officially married. It didn't seem important to me. I believed that real relationships didn't need stamps and passports. We were partners, we shared a life, we built a future together. What more did we need? Lora agreed, saying she preferred to live authentically, rather than follow outdated social conventions. I thought we were on the same page. Our life seemed perfect. We hosted dinner parties where I grilled steaks on the patio while Lora entertained guests with witty stories. We took weekend trips to wine country, spending lazy afternoons at small vineyards in Napa and Sonoma. We talked about maybe starting a family someday, though neither of us seemed in a hurry. We had time, or so I believed. Everything started changing around the beginning of December. Caitlin, my office manager who had worked with me since the company's opening, approached me one morning with a strange expression on her face. Caitlin was in her mid-40s, practical, no-nonsense, the kind of person who kept my chaotic schedules organized and made sure suppliers delivered on time. She had been with me through thick and thin, and I trusted her judgment completely. "Sebastian, we need to talk," she said quietly, looking around even though there was no one else in the office. "What happened? Problems with suppliers?" "No, it's personal." She took a nervous breath. "My friend Nora works as an administrator at a hotel on the shore of Lake Tahoe. She saw Lora there last week." My heart tightened, but I tried to stay calm. Maybe she went there for work? Boutiques sometimes organize off-site presentations for VIP clients. Caitlin was silent, and in that pause, I understood that the news would be worse. Her face told the whole story before her words did. She looked uncomfortable, shifting from foot to foot, clearly wishing she didn't have to be the one to tell me. She wasn't alone, Sebastian. There was a man with her. Nora says they checked in as a couple and spent 2 nights there. "You were on that big project in Redding last week, weren't you?" I remembered. Yes, I had spent 3 days on a site in Redding, a 2-hour drive north. Lora said she would be busy with inventory at the boutique. Lake Tahoe was in the opposite direction, about 2 hours east through the mountains. A convenient distance for a romantic getaway when your partner is far away. The project in Redding had been demanding. A tech millionaire wanted to transform 5 acres of bare land into a botanical paradise with rare plants imported from around the world. I had spent long days working with my team, dealing with soil amendments, irrigation systems, structural challenges. I had called Lora every evening, tired but satisfied with our progress. She had sounded normal, chatting about her day, complaining about a difficult customer, mentioning that she might work late on inventory. I had no reason to doubt her. The next few days I spent in some kind of foggy state trying to understand what to do next. Part of me wanted to immediately confront her, but another part, more cold and calculating, told me to gather information. I had learned from my first marriage that acting on emotion rarely led to good outcomes. I needed to know the full picture before I made any moves. I continued going through the motions of daily life. I met with clients, reviewed project proposals, supervised my crews in the field. But my mind was elsewhere, constantly circling back to that image of Lora at Lake Tahoe with some unknown man. Who was he? How long had this been going on? Was this a one-time thing or something more? I started with her friends. Lora had several close girlfriends from college who she regularly met for Sunday brunches. One of them, a girl named Emma, had always treated me with a certain coolness. I had noticed it but never thought much about it. Not everyone clicks immediately. Now I wondered if she had known something all along. I invited her for coffee under the pretext of wanting to organize a surprise for Lora. We met at a small cafe in Midtown, the kind of place with exposed brick walls and overpriced lattes. Emma arrived exactly on time, dressed impeccably as always, her designer handbag probably costing more than most people's monthly rent. A surprise? Emma raised an eyebrow, and something like surprise and pity flashed in her eyes simultaneously. Yes, I want to arrange something special for her. She's looked tired lately, I think she needs a break. Emma looked at me for a long time then sighed. She stirred her coffee slowly, the spoon clinking against the ceramic cup in the quiet cafe. Around us, other people chatted and laughed, oblivious to the conversation that was about to change my life. Sebastian, I'm not sure I have the right, but if you really don't know. She fell silent, choosing her words carefully. Lora has changed. She's seeing someone. For about 3 months, maybe more. 3 months. That meant everything started back in the fall, when the leaves on the trees my team planted were just beginning to turn yellow. September, October, November. 3 entire months while I had been living in blissful ignorance, planning our future, thinking about whether we should finally get married, considering whether our house was big enough for children. Who is he? I didn't recognize my own voice. Emma hesitated again, and I could see the internal struggle playing out on her face. She didn't want to be the messenger, but she also seemed relieved that the truth was finally coming out. His name is Thad. He's a decorator, works with Elite Interiors. He came to the boutique as a client and they got close. Sebastian, I'm very sorry. I told her to stop this, but she what? Emma fell silent again but then decided to continue. She leaned forward, lowering her voice even though no one around us was paying attention to our conversation. She said you're a good person, reliable, stable, but that she needs something more. Something you can't give. Sorry, it's wrong of me to say this, but you asked. I sat staring at my coffee, feeling something breaking inside, but strangely quietly, without drama. Maybe because part of me had already suspected. There had been small signs I had dismissed. The new perfume, working late more often, being less interested in our conversations. I had attributed it to stress at work, to the natural ebb and flow of a long-term relationship. I had been a fool. Does everyone know? I asked, my voice flat. Not everyone. But some of us have known for a while. We didn't know how to tell you. We hoped she would end it on her own, that it was just a phase. I'm sorry, Sebastian. You deserve better than this. Over the next week, I learned more than I would have wanted to know. I talked to her other friends and the picture became increasingly clear. Thad wasn't the only one. Before him, there had been 3 others, short-term romances that Lora viewed as experiments, or finding herself, as she told her friends. One was an architect she met during the summer. They had encountered each other at some design conference and apparently the chemistry was immediate. That affair lasted about 6 weeks before the architect returned to his girlfriend. Another was a photographer who shot for fashion magazines. Lora had hired him for some boutique promotional work, and one thing led to another. The third was an owner of an art gallery, older, sophisticated, speaking in artistic terms that apparently fascinated her. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and click like if you enjoy this story. I always read your comments and analyze which stories you like best so that I can create better stories. Thank you. I will continue the story. All of them were creative, artistic, unpredictable. Everything that I, obviously, was not. I built gardens and lawns, calculated irrigation systems, and selected plants based on soil pH. I was the ground beneath people's feet and she wanted to fly. She wanted excitement, passion, the thrill of the forbidden. I represented stability and predictability, qualities that apparently bored her to tears. The more I learned, the more I realized how little I had actually known her. The woman I thought I loved was a carefully constructed facade, showing me only what she thought I wanted to see. The real Lora was someone else entirely, someone who sought validation through male attention, who needed constant excitement to feel alive, who viewed relationships as temporary stopping points rather than permanent homes. But the biggest blow came from a different direction. My bookkeeper, whom I had hired 3 months ago on an additional shift to organize the company's finances, found strange transactions. Several large sums had gone from our joint account for purposes unknown to me. I started digging deeper and discovered that Lora had opened a line of credit in her name using our house as collateral. The house that was technically registered in both our names, though I had invested all the money into it. She had spent these funds on. I couldn't believe it at first, on investment in an art project by one of her lovers. $25,000. Just gone. Vanished into some pretentious art installation that would never see the light of day. The gallery owner, the third man, the sophisticated one, had convinced her that this project would be revolutionary, that early investors would see massive returns. It was a complete scam, and Lora had fallen for it because she was blinded by infatuation. When I confronted her with these facts, Lora didn't even try to deny it. We sat in our living room with large windows overlooking the garden I had designed with my own hands. Winter sun shone through the bare branches of Japanese maples. The beauty of the scene seemed to mock the ugliness of what was unfolding. "Yes, it's true," she said simply, as if she were talking about buying a new dress. "I'm seeing that. And yes, there were others." Her casualness shocked me more than the admission itself. There was no shame, no guilt, no recognition that she had done anything wrong. She sat there on our couch, the couch we had picked out together, arguing playfully about fabric choices, and spoke about her betrayals as if they were minor lifestyle choices. Why? The only word I could utter. Because I wanted to live, Sebastian. To really live. You're a good person, but you're predictable. Every day is the same. Work, home, dinner, sleep. I wanted passion, wanted to feel alive. Her words cut deeper than I expected. Predictable. Boring. Safe. That's how she saw me, not as a man who worked hard to build a life for us, but as an obstacle to her excitement. I had thought I was being a good partner by providing stability. She thought I was being a jailer. And the money? $25,000 on an art project for your lover? She shrugged with an indifference that made my blood boil. It was an opportunity. A good investment. That was my money, Lora. Our money. Technically, I had the right to manage it. We lived together, the house is in both our names. The legal justification was the final insult. She had stolen from me, there was no other word for it, and now she was hiding behind technicalities. I looked at her and suddenly understood, she had never loved me. Maybe there had been something at first, but it quickly turned into calculation. I was a safe harbor, a financial cushion, a background for her real life that happened somewhere beyond our home. She had used me. That's what it came down to. She had used my money, my home, my trust, all while living a completely separate life. And she felt entitled to do so, as if I existed solely to provide her with a comfortable base from which to pursue her adventures. Will you continue seeing Thad? I asked, though the answer no longer mattered. I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe I'll find someone else. Sebastian, I don't want to be tied to one place, to one person. I thought I wanted stability, but I realized it's not for me. There it was, the truth laid bare. She didn't want me. She probably never had. She wanted what I could provide while keeping her options open for something better. And the worst part was that she seemed to think this was perfectly reasonable, that her needs justified any behavior. The next day I drove to see my lawyer. Michael, my attorney who had represented me during my first divorce, listened to the whole story and whistled low. This is complicated, Sebastian. You're not officially married, but you've lived together for 5 years. In California, this can be equated to a common law marriage. Plus the house is registered in both your names. I know. But I can't let her get half of everything. She spent my money, cheated on me, and now what? I'm supposed to reward her for it. Michael thought for a moment, tapping his pen against his desk. His office was filled with law books and case files, the accumulated wisdom of decades of practice. He had seen everything, dealt with every kind of divorce imaginable, but even he seemed a bit taken aback by Lora's audacity. There are options. Illegal? No. Complicated? Yes. But doable. Over the next 2 weeks, we developed a strategy. I transferred most of my assets through the corporate structures of my landscaping company. created trust funds that Lora had no access to. Technically, everything was clean. These were my business assets, earned before our shared life and during it. The company was solely in my name, registered years before I met Lora. The profits, the investments, the equipment, all of it was clearly mine. I left a minimum in the joint account, just enough not to raise suspicion. Paid the regular bills, made sure the mortgage went through, kept everything looking normal. But everything else, the savings, the investment accounts, the business reserves, all of it was now protected behind corporate walls. The house was a more complex issue. But I remembered, when we bought it, the main down payment was mine and Lora added a symbolic amount. We even had a document about this that I had wisely kept. Michael said this would help. The document showed that I had contributed 90% of the initial investment while Lora had contributed only 10%. It wasn't an ironclad protection, but it was something. But I wanted more than just saving my money. I wanted her to understand what she had done. To feel the consequences. The cold anger that had replaced my initial shock demanded justice, not just financial protection. She had humiliated me, stolen from me, lied to me for months. She deserved to feel what that was like. I started small. Withdrew her as a contact person for all my business partners. Then casually mentioned to several influential clients, who were also clients of her boutique, about us separating due to her complicated life choices. I didn't name details, but people started to figure it out themselves. The Sacramento elite is a small world. Everyone knows everyone, and gossip travels faster than wildfire. A hint here, a carefully worded comment there, and soon the whispers would start. Sebastian's girlfriend cheated on him. She took his money. She had affairs with multiple men. The details didn't need to be exact. The general impression was enough. Rumors in Sacramento's elite circles spread quickly, especially when it comes to betrayal and financial schemes. The women who shopped at Lora's boutique began to see her differently, not as a trusted advisor on fashion, but as someone morally questionable. If she could betray her partner, what else was she capable of? Could she be trusted with their credit cards? With their personal information? Then I called the owner of the boutique where Lora worked. Her name was Patricia, a stern, conservative woman with a clear understanding of reputation and image. Patricia had built her boutique's brand on exclusivity and trust. Her clients came to her because they knew they would receive not just expensive clothes but also discretion, professionalism, reliability. I simply told her the truth, that Lora had used her position for personal romances with clients, that she had spent shared money on one of them, and that all of this could be documented. I was careful with my words, presenting facts rather than accusations, letting Patricia draw her own conclusions. I don't want to create problems, I said softly, but I think you should know. If this becomes public, it could harm your business's reputation. Patricia thanked me for the information in a cold tone, and I knew Lora wouldn't last long there. A boutique that catered to wealthy, often married women couldn't afford to employ someone who was known for having affairs with clients. The optics were terrible. What if she went after their husbands? What if she was stealing from the store? Once the trust was broken, everything became suspect. Through Caitlin I learned more about that. It turned out he was married. His wife didn't even suspect the affair. I didn't contact her directly, that would have been low. But I made sure certain information reached mutual acquaintances of his wife. Again, nothing direct, just questions, doubts, hints dropped in the right places. Have you noticed Thad working late a lot lately? I thought I saw someone who looked like Thad at that hotel in Tahoe. Does Thad have any new clients he's particularly enthusiastic about? Innocent questions that planted seeds of suspicion. I watched as Lora's world began to crumble. First, she lost her job. Patricia fired her under the pretext of reorganization. In reality, Patricia couldn't afford to keep someone whose personal drama might affect the boutique's reputation. Lora's protestations fell on deaf ears. She tried to claim discrimination, to threaten legal action, but Patricia's lawyers had prepared everything carefully. The termination was clean, legal, and final. Then her relationships with friends began to deteriorate. Emma and her other girlfriends who knew about the betrayals started to distance themselves. It turned out that many of them had disapproved of her behavior but remained silent out of loyalty. Now that everything was out in the open, they no longer felt obligated to support her. Invitations to brunches stopped coming. Calls went unreturned. Social media posts were quietly unfollowed. Thad also disappeared from her life quickly. As soon as his wife found out, and she did find out, he instantly severed all contact with Lora. It turned out passion wasn't so strong when his own marriage and reputation were at stake. His wife gave him an ultimatum: End it immediately and completely or lose everything in a divorce. Thad chose self-preservation. Lora was blocked on his phone, his email, his social media. She might as well have never existed. I filed documents to dissolve our common-law marriage. Thanks to forethought and Michael's work, I managed to keep almost everything. The house went to me, the documents about unequal contribution played their part. The business remained mine, it was registered to the company anyway. The joint account, which had only pennies left, we split equally. Lora got nothing substantial, just enough to avoid legal complications. Lora tried to fight, hired a lawyer, but she lacked both evidence and money for a long legal battle. The $25,000 she spent on the art project disappeared without a trace. The project failed and her lover vanished with the money. The gallery closed, declaring bankruptcy, and there was no way to recover the investment. Her lawyer advised her to settle rather than drag things out. She had no choice but to agree. The legal proceedings took 3 months. 3 months of tense negotiations, cold exchanges through lawyers, the systematic dismantling of the life we had built together. Or rather, the life I had built while she lived parasitically off my efforts. Every asset was catalogued, every expense examined, every claim evaluated. In the end, the numbers didn't lie. I had built everything and I kept everything. March brought the first signs of spring. I stood in the garden near the house, planting new plantings. This was where I always felt peace. The earth didn't lie, didn't betray. It just was. I could trust it to respond predictably to care, water it, feed it, tend it, and it would grow. If only human relationships were so simple. Through Sam, my longtime friend and business partner, I learned that Lora had moved to a small apartment on the outskirts of the city. She was trying to find work, but her reputation in Sacramento's business circles was ruined. Nobody wanted to hire a manager who had rumors of affairs with clients and financial schemes. Every interview ended the same way, initial interest followed by polite rejection once they did their due diligence. Her other former lovers also disappeared. The architect moved to Los Angeles, taking a position with a large firm there. The photographer got married to his longtime girlfriend, the one he had been with when he was seeing Lora. The gallery owner, as mentioned, closed his business due to debts. It turned out that art project Lora invested our money and was part of his desperate attempt to save his failing gallery. It didn't work. He declared bankruptcy and left the state, leaving creditors and investors alike empty-handed. My friend Victor, who worked in real estate, told me he saw Lora at an interview at a regular clothing store in the shopping mall. Not an elite boutique but a mass-market store with democratic prices. They didn't hire her even there. The manager remembered her from times when Lora treated her condescendingly at one of the fashion events. Karma, it seemed, had a long memory and a cruel sense of humor. I didn't feel triumphant. Honestly, I just felt empty. I had carried out my revenge not out of anger but through cold calculation. She took away my trust, my time, my money. I took away everything else. It was proportional, fair, even. But it didn't make me feel better. Victory in war, I discovered, still leaves you standing on a battlefield. But the strangest thing was what I realized about myself. My first divorce was soft, without conflicts, because there was no betrayal there, just divergence. Two people who wanted different things from life, parting ways amicably. But now I had seen what I was capable of when truly hurt. And this discovery scared me more than the betrayal itself. I had systematically destroyed someone's life. Yes, she had wronged me first. Yes, she deserved consequences. But I had pursued those consequences with a thoroughness that surprised even me. I had manipulated social networks, planted rumors, leveraged business relationships, all to ensure her complete downfall. Was this who I really was? Or had she brought out something dark in me that had always been there, waiting? One April evening, I sat on the terrace, looking at the garden that was just beginning to wake up after winter. My company had received a new large order, reconstruction of a park zone in the city center. Business was thriving, life was settling into a new normal. The city council wanted to create a showcase project, and my firm had won the competitive bid. It was a 6-figure contract that would keep us busy for months. The phone vibrated, a message from an unknown number. I opened it and froze. Sebastian, this is Lora. Sorry for writing. I know I have no right. Just wanted to say, you won. I lost everything, job, friends, reputation, home, money, even the ability to simply live in this city. I'm moving to Oregon to my sister's place. Starting from scratch. Don't know if you'll understand, but I really thought I was doing the right thing. That I had a right to my own happiness. Now I understand, happiness built on someone else's pain can't be real. I'm not expecting forgiveness. Just wanted you to know, you weren't the problem. The problem was in me. Always was. Take care of yourself. I read the message twice, then deleted it. There was no point in responding. This was all in the past. Whatever she felt now, whatever realization she had come to, they didn't change anything. She had made her choices and now she lived with the consequences. As did I. But that night I dreamed of Lake Tahoe. I had never been there, but somehow I saw it in my dream. The dark, smooth surface of the water, snowy shores, a lonely hotel among trees. And Lora, standing by the window of a room, looking at this beauty, not understanding that at that very moment she was losing much more than she was gaining. The dream was vivid, almost cinematically clear. I could see the details, the condensation on the window glass, the reflection of firelight from somewhere inside the room, the way snow fell gently outside. And Laura's face, younger somehow, more innocent than I had ever seen it in real life. Was this how she saw herself? As an innocent seeker of happiness rather than a destroyer of trust? I woke up with a feeling that the chapter was closed. Not a happy ending, not a tragic one, just closed. Life continues and there's a kind of justice in that. The sun still rose, work still needed to be done, gardens still needed to be planted. My pain would fade eventually, becoming just another scar, another lesson learned the hard way. The next morning I drove to a new site. I needed to design a garden for a private estate in the suburbs. The clients wanted something special, a combination of Japanese minimalism and California lushness. They were a young couple, probably in their early 30s, recently married and expecting their first child. They wanted to create something beautiful for their growing family. I stood on the plot, feeling the earth under my feet, breathing in the fresh spring air, and thought about what I would plant here. Maybe Japanese maples that would remind me of how important it is to let go of old leaves so new ones can grow. Maybe magnolias that bloom even after the coldest winter. Or maybe cherry trees that put on a spectacular show every spring, reminding us that beauty can return even after the harshest season. Or maybe I would simply create something beautiful, without hidden meanings, without symbolism. Just a garden where people would feel good. Because in the end, that's what I always wanted, to create places where people feel peace. That was my gift, my purpose, the thing that gave my life meaning even when everything else fell apart. If Lora was looking for passion and drama, then I found mine in simple things. In the smell of freshly cut grass, in the sight of a young sprout breaking through the earth, in the satisfaction of a completed project. She lost everything looking for something elusive. I kept everything by holding on to what truly has value. And there was no revenge in this, it was just life's logic. You get what you choose. She chose chaos, I chose order. Each received their due. The sun rose higher, promising a warm day. I took out my notebook and began sketching the future garden. A new life, a new project, a new chapter. Without Lora, without drama, without betrayal. Just me and my work, which I love. The earth beneath my feet felt solid, real, honest in a way that human relationships apparently couldn't be. I thought about the couple who hired me, young, in love, full of hope for their future. Would they make it? Would their love survive the test that life would inevitably throw at them? Or would they too end up like Lora and me, or like me and my first wife, strangers who once shared a bed? But that wasn't my concern. My job was to create beauty for them, to give them a space where they could build their memories. If their marriage failed, it wouldn't be because of anything I did or didn't do. We each make our own choices, face our own consequences. As I worked on the design, I found myself thinking about trust. How fragile it is, how difficult to build, how easy to destroy. 5 years with Lora, and what did I have to show for it? Some memories, most now tainted by knowledge of her betrayals. Some expensive lessons about human nature. And a determination to be more careful, more discerning, more protective of my heart in the future. Would I love again? Probably. Would I trust again? That was harder to say. Lora had shown me that people could wear masks for years, showing you only what they wanted you to see. How could you ever really know someone? How could you ever be sure? But I couldn't live in fear. Couldn't let her betrayal turn me into a bitter, suspicious person who saw deception around every corner. That would be letting her win in a different way, letting her poison not just my past but my future too. I refused to give her that power. The design came together quickly. A central water feature surrounded by native plants. Seating areas tucked into private corners. Open spaces for children to play. Fruit trees that would grow along with the family, producing cherries and apples and pears in season. It would be beautiful, functional, alive. And it was more than enough. More than enough to fill my days with purpose, my mind with challenges, my heart with satisfaction. Lora had thought she needed multiple men to feel alive. I had my work, my craft, my ability to create beauty from bare earth. I had my integrity, my honesty, my self-respect. Who had won? The question itself seemed meaningless now. There were no winners in this story, just survivors. She survived by starting over somewhere else. I survived by staying true to who I was, by not letting her transform me into someone I didn't recognize. The days grew warmer as spring progressed. My project in the city center was going well. My team was professional, efficient, transforming a neglected public space into something the community could be proud of. I threw myself into the work, finding in it the solace that personal relationships had failed to provide. Occasionally, I would see people who knew both Lora and me, at restaurants, at business events around town. Some looked at me with pity. Others with a kind of respect, perhaps admiring how I had handled the situation. Still others seemed uncomfortable, unsure what to say. I kept my interactions brief, professional, giving them no opening to probe into my feelings or offer unwanted sympathy. Sam, my business partner, was a steady presence. He didn't ask questions I didn't want to answer, didn't offer advice I didn't need. He just was there, solid and reliable, the kind of friend who shows up when needed and steps back when not. One evening, over beers at our favorite bar, he simply said, "You're going to be okay, you know." I nodded. I know. And I did know. The acute pain had already faded to a dull ache, and even that was diminishing. One day I would think about Lora and feel nothing. Not anger, not hurt, not even disappointment. Just indifference. That day wasn't here yet, but it was coming. I thought about reaching out to my ex-wife, the one from my first marriage. We had parted on good terms, maintained occasional contact over the years. She would understand, perhaps, what I was going through. But in the end, I decided against it. That chapter was closed too, and reopening it served no purpose. We had both moved on, built separate lives. Best to let sleeping dogs lie. Instead, I focused on rebuilding my social life. Went to more industry events, reconnected with old friends I had neglected during my relationship with Lora, accepted invitations I previously would have declined. Slowly, carefully, I was creating a new normal, one that didn't include her or the space she had occupied in my life. The house felt different now, emptier but also more mine. I rearranged furniture, changed some of the decor that Lora had insisted on, made it reflect my tastes rather than some compromise between her preferences and mine. It was liberating in a way, this reclaiming of space. Summer arrived, bringing with it the busy season for my business. Long days in the hot Sacramento sun, working alongside my crews, getting my hands dirty, seeing projects come to life. This was real. This was solid. This was something I could count on, hard work producing tangible results. One afternoon, while working on a residential project in East Sacramento, I struck up a conversation with the homeowner's daughter. She was visiting from San Francisco, around my age, with an easy laugh and genuine warmth. We talked about plants, about the city, about nothing in particular. When she mentioned maybe getting coffee sometime if I was ever in San Francisco, I found myself saying yes. Was I ready to date again? Probably not. But I was ready to be open to possibilities, to not close myself off completely. That felt like progress. Thank you for watching this video. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. The screen now displays a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.